My name's Jay Sweet, and I'm the editor-at-large of Paste Magazine, and I'm here with a good friend of mine, Jim James, who, among other things, is the lead singer of this band called My Morning Jacket. And he has now a solo album out, which we're going to talk about, which I'm very excited about. Thanks for coming, buddy.
Hi, Jay.
How you been?
Good to see you.
Good to see you. I actually wanted to ask you this when I first heard the album, but it's been a while since you and I could converse. How many instruments did you play on the album?
Over 140,000.
That's quite impressive.
Yep.
Did you create a little studio in your abode, or did you go anywhere and do it?
Yeah, I've always loved recording by myself. I love recording with people too, but I've always had some kind of setup at home, and I've watched it blossom over the years. I've just decided a while ago. I got some great advice from Joe Ciccarelli, who did Evil Urges with us.
Yep.
And he told me for that album I had made super complex demos that were like super intense and all these keyboards and all these drum machines. And we were struggling a lot trying to beat the demo when we were making the record. And he sat me down, he was like, dude, whatever you do, just don't make demos anymore, because you can put too much passion into the demo. So I thought that was a great piece of advice. So ever since then, I've gotten a lot of gear that I love. So I divide songs into two categories. Like, one is stuff I want to do with My Morning Jacket, and if I get a song idea for that, I'll just sing it into my voice memo real quick and then don't do anything else with it, so we can do it all fresh. And then other things I want to work on, I just start working on them in a real recording setup. So for the solo record, I just started. I got this book called God's Man, which is
we spoke about that. Yeah.
It's
Tell me a little bit about it. It's an amazing book.
Yeah, for anybody who doesn't know, it's a wordless graphic novel that came out in 1929. It's this beautifully cinematic book. It's not a comic book, but it's not a book either. And I started scoring this book in hopes that it might become a film one day. But the book is also pretty easy to score. Not easy, but it's like you're watching a movie. Mm-hmm. So everything just kind of started to come out for that, and it started to come out. The book just pulled it all out, and I was recording it all in the method I wanted to record things to, so it just kind of all started growing.
Yeah, and I remember talking to you a little bit about this before you actually went in to record. We were in Central Park, and we were walking around, and you said how sometimes, how you have to be open up to the muses that come because you don't know when they're going to hit, but at the same time you have to allow yourself to be open to that. And I remember you telling me a little bit about when you were going to go in to make the solo album, one of your goals was to try to make this, and I want you to correct me if I'm wrong, like a futuristic album that, it's not futuristic and you're trying to make some robotic sounds, but an album that if you make now that people looking back would be like, oh, that was ahead of its time a little bit.
Yeah, I tell people I wanted it to sound like the sound of future past, like
right.
You were in the future, you're in the year 4019 and you're listening to a record that was made in 3900.
Yeah.
And you're listening to something.
Listen to this old-timey record.
Back
from 3019.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to make like a futuristic, I don't know, I'm really into gear and I'm really into soundscapes and textures, so equipment and the recording studio is just as important to me as the songs and all that stuff, because I feel like building soundscapes or trying to work on film, I've started working in some ways where you're working on a soundscape that isn't, it might not be a linear song, like you're not going verse, chorus, verse, chorus, verse, or whatever.
Right.
You're taking things and putting them in places, and it's cool. That's one of the favorite things about working digitally is I can record to analog tape or I can record straight into the computer, and a lot of times I'll build designs out of blocks of light or whatever and make a soundscape. So I feel like, yeah, I wanted it to be futuristic, but not in a strict, because I feel like when you hear futuristic, you immediately start thinking techno, and you start thinking,
right.
You start thinking all these things, but I want it to be organic too. So I don't know, but I don't really think, I feel like influences kind of come in and they just do what they do. It's kind of more subliminal thing.
Because I actually heard a little bit of Harry Belafonte a little bit.
Yeah, I love Harry Belafonte so much.
I heard some of that, you know. And I was wondering, so in building it upon layers in your studio, your woodshed, in building it upon layers, I know you, and I know you have this sound in your head because we've talked about that. You hear it. How easy was it, this process, to get, was it, I know sometimes with you, you're like, yep, that song just was here, and I heard the song I wanted, and it got there. Did you feel like this one it was work, or did it just come out in one?
It just kind of poured out, but it was definitely work. I mean, but it all came out. I always liked the old Arid Extra Dry. I think it was Arid Extra Dry that said 50% inspiration, 50% perspiration. Because I feel like half is divine and you don't know where it comes from and it just pours out, but then the other half is work, because if you don't work with the message that came from somewhere else, it dies, you know?
Right.
So for me, it's like a respect thing. If the universe chose to give me this message, if I don't do something with it, I feel like that's disrespecting the spirits or disrespecting the muse or God or whatever you want to call it. So it's like you have to work with it. But this record, due in part to God's Man, was kind of like the inspiration for it. So it was like the vehicle in which it traveled, and always gave me like a point of reference.
It gave you a touchstone just in case you find yourself wandering off this path, and it gave you this reference point to go. It's great. Now, in going back to the 140,000 various things that you played on the record, would you start with something? I know we've talked about in the past, like, we talked about Paul Simon, how he starts a lot of songs with the rhythm and then works the other way, where most people start with a melody and work that way.
Most songs come to me in rhythm and melody. And melody just means like a basic melody, because
Like
the beat is always
humming or like a
just like a vocal melody usually, and a rhythm, and then other things start to come in. But that's one of the things. That's why I feel like you have to know the recording studio, because there's so many ways you can record a guitar, and I like to try and make the guitar sound as weird as I can.
not like a guitar.
Yeah. So there's so many things you can do. So it's like it's more. I hate to keep saying cinematic or whatever, but it's more about the soundscape of the thing, and less about what things actually are.
And you created those yourself. I mean, you weren't bringing in other musicians to say, hey, can you make it sound like this? Or
no, I did everything myself except for the drums. My buddy Dave played most of the drums on the album, and we had some live string players that came in. But I wrote those parts too, and mic'd them up, and knew how I wanted them to.
So this is a true solo album. I mean, this was everything.
Because I engineered it and put the mics where I want to, because I'm into that too. And I don't claim to be a great engineer, but it's more of like knowing you want something to sound like this, and you move the mic around until it sounds like this.
That. Yeah. Right. Now the fun part. How have you been able to translate it live? I know you've just done a couple of shows and you've been rehearsing. And how have you seen it in the live process? Bringing it into the real world and putting it in front of real people.
I think it's been great. I mean, people can be the judge of that for themselves, but I think it's been really fun, because I've got a really great band that we've all been friends for a long time, and with the exception of Alana, who I haven't known that long, but she's playing bass, and she's
great.
She came right in and just was like unbelievable. Yeah. So for me, it's been it's like a bunch of old friends who I've played music with all of them a ton before, and this is a new adventure for us. But they either played, like Dave played on the record, and I mixed the record at Kevin's studio. Kevin plays like samples.
So he's been hearing it. He's been hearing it as it's been.
Everybody's keyed into the record, and it's been really beautiful, because it's been able to expand the record while staying with what I wanted the record to be. But making an album is always just a snapshot of a moment in time, and you have to accept this was this song December 14th 2010, and now this song is still the same thing, but it's grown up some. It's not the same person it was December 14th 2010.
It's like a postcard from a great journey that you're going on. It's the postcard you bought and you mailed yourself, so you can be like, oh yeah, I remember that place.
Yeah, it really is.
Looking forward in the summer, is there anything that you have? Like, I know that you're really touring this one. I mean, you've got this isn't just like a 1 month thing and then you're going back and doing something. Is there stuff you're really looking forward to that you're doing, with this album in the future? I mean, like leading up into the summer months and.
Yeah, I just want to become a peaceful person. I want to become a person that is satisfied but still seeking, but I want to reach a plane of contented satisfaction. Like, I want to reach a prolonged period of personal peace.
Sure.
That's really my only goal, because life is so confusing.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to not be confused.
Well, I appreciate that, because I think you definitely, I think you've, for me, and watching, the kind of some of the progression of this, of doing the George Harrison stuff and by yourself, kind of taking the time to do that and using your own stuff in studio to figure out how to do a lot of that stuff, and watching these songs from the kernels to go, that I think you really created something pretty unique, and I think it is a really good snapshot of you in this time, Thanks for coming, buddy.
Thank you, my friend.
Thanks, buddy.